Welcome back to Rant and Rave. In today's video, we're going to be looking back at UFC 285, an absolutely cracking card. And we previously did look at Ian Gary and his recent fight. And so make sure to go check out that video previously up on the channel. But in today's video, as I said, we're going to be looking at kind of a few of the prelim fights and, of course, the main card as well. Joined again by Dave. How are you, pal?
All good, bro. How are you?
Yeah, listen, can't complain. Can't complain. Looking forward to looking at these fights. Plenty of good ones, big names. Probably I don't think you'll probably top this card in terms of star power for the rest of the year. I think it's probably arguably going to be the strongest card of the year.
Outside of McGregor card, it's probably as good as it gets, really.
But as in terms of like, I think a McGregor card.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Across the board, star power. Yeah, I'd say you'd be tough to beat. Yeah,
I think the promotion of it was strong enough.
no, probably not. Like again, it's the same. It's the same thing as we spoke about the last card.
Yeah,
With Islam, like such a big fight, and I didn't hear much of it, but even Dana spoke on it. He said that it all starts to kick into gear on fight week on the Monday, where they start posting the embedded, and he starts posting on his socials and saying it's fight week and posting like promotional videos. But I think for something of this magnitude, return of Jon Jones, like it should be 2-3 weeks in advance. As I said the last time, it has to be 2-3 weeks in advance because you need that time to build up the kind of excitement.
yeah. Get the casual fans on board. Get a press conference going a month in advance or
Yeah,
something. Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
100%. Get all the big names on stage. A lot of good names, even like, the way they had the press conferences, like main card at the front, kind of prelims at the back. A lot of big faces in that back row as well. Like it's definitely would have been worthwhile. I feel like there's a lot more they could have done in
Yeah,
terms of promoting the card. So that was a bit of a shame. And I feel like people didn't really know that it was happening and like didn't like obviously we knew we were kind of fans, but a lot of
mm,
people like lads that we'd chat in kind of casuals didn't really like know what was happening or didn't know. Oh, Cody Garbran's fight. What the like that's mad. Like
yeah,
he's
exactly. Yeah.
big names like so.
Mhm.
But yeah, we'll jump straight into it and start off in the middleweight division. Derek Brunson, who was ranked number 7 before this fight, taking on Duplessis, who is just off the back of a win over Darren Till.
Yeah.
Quite a back and forth scrap. Brunson did well in the first round, got Duplessis down on the ground and had a bit of control there. But of course, in round 2, Duplessis did go on to seal the victory. And I think Brunson's corner through in the tail. What were your thoughts on this scrap?
Yeah, first round, it seemed like Brunson got him down, and it was kind of like this is his area. This could be dangerous for Duplessis. But he survived that, and then in the second round, it was strange watching it because like initially in the first round I was watching it, I was thinking Brunson, if he continues this way, like he's gonna kind of outclass Duplessis. But then it came back in the second round, and Brunson was just tired. He
Yeah,
was fatigued, majorly fatigued, and it was the right call to throw in the towel for sure because the last couple of shots landed were like it was the weirdest thing. He was literally like on the ground, and it was almost like he heard the clap for the 10 seconds left in the round, and he thought, okay, I'm good, and he kind of had his hands up like that, and he looked like he was already out cold,
yeah.
and then Festus landed a nasty left hand and kind of like drilled his head into the floor. So it was definitely like if the ref wasn't going to stop it, they had to throw in the towel. So impressive win from Duplessis. Obviously come off the back of win over Darren Till, submission win over Darren Till. Obviously a big name. Darren Till has been on a bit of a slide as of recent, but still big name to beat. And now Brunson as well. It's also a household name. So
Yeah, obviously beating number 7 in the rankings as well. We'll go into that top 10 for the first time, and obviously probably will potentially get a big fight off the back of this as well. It's kind of a tricky one middleweight at the moment. Some
yeah.
people are kind of tied up at the moment, and some fights coming up.
Mhm.
And probably going to get the Izzy and Pereira rematch and stuff. So yeah, he's probably a couple of fights away from maybe a title shot, but he looks like he has potential to maybe get himself into that kind of top 5 and in and around the mix.
Yeah, definitely, easily. Did you see actually just on him? Did you see what he spoke about in terms of the African fighters in the
Yeah,
UFC? It was
interesting.
interesting. It was an interesting point because he did make a good point because he said like, these guys are claiming to be African champions, but do they breathe African air? I just thought it was an interesting point. So yeah, that's what he's claiming now. He wants to be the first, African born African who lives in Africa
Yeah, yeah.
to be a champion. So yeah.
Kind of good kind of. build up to the Izzy fight maybe, and it kind of has that kind of little
Yeah,
bit of fight in it, kind of already peppering there. So it's something we maybe may see down the line,
exactly.
which could be great. But you kind of mentioned Darren Till there. We might just go into that really quickly. Obviously, you kind of mentioned that I think both of these fighters have actually beaten Darren Till in recent years.
Yeah, yeah.
And as I said, he was on a slide, Darren Till, and he was removed from the UFC rankings. Thoughts on that? It's kind of a tricky one. It's hard to know where he fits into the whole picture now, really, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that whole story when it kind of emerged, now that I've heard all the sides to it, it is still a bit conflicting because Darren kind of came out and said initially it got released and you thought like, oh, because he had lost a few fights that they had released him, but he came out and said that he needs some sort of surgery done and he wants to just go off for 2 years or something and then come back and fight as normal. But but Dana kind of was like, yeah, like plenty of people have asked, been in tough situations and they've asked to be released. And he said down the line, if he wants to come back and fight, it's something we'd probably do. But it didn't seem like, it was a guaranteed agreement where, oh, I'm going to take 2 years out. I'll be out of the UFC and I'll come back. He said, it's something we'd probably do. So I think there was kind of a bit of a difference in terms of what Darren Till was saying as opposed to what Dana was saying. So it is interesting.
Tone of voice is different or something, isn't it? It's kind of
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. It seemed more like it was certain in Darren's head that he'd be coming back, whereas Dana kind of said like it wasn't even just about his injury or his surgery. It was like, a lot of top fighters get into tough situations and lose a few fights and ask to be released. So I think they're not on the same page almost, maybe.
yeah, yeah. It's a weird one, isn't it? I think it's maybe to get off, like if he has getting a surgery done or something, it's maybe to get off the USADA testing pool or something, maybe something to do there as
Yeah,
well,
I think
probably.
I think that is it. Yeah. Yeah.
I think he's definitely a big enough name that the UFC would definitely take him back. And after 2 years as well, I think there'd be probably an intrigue built up, and I think like he's kind of a character as well. I think he's someone that even to bring him back, and even if he is a bit of a jobber type fighter in the end or something, because I don't think it's a shame he doesn't, like, he has a lot of potential, but I don't think it doesn't seem like he's going to fulfill it. And that
No.
taking 2 years off now is just, it's a bit of a shame at this point of his career, and he's probably trying to work his way back into the mix. But yeah,
Mhm.
um, we'll see what is next for Darren Till in the coming years. But yeah,
Yeah.
we'll move on to another fighter who has been on a slide the last couple of years, Cody Garbrandt. He got a much needed victory over Trevin Jones. It was a decision victory, so not a trademark KO from Cody Garbrandt. But yeah, could this be a turning point for him?
I'd like it to be.
Mm,
At this point, it's kind of hard to know because obviously watching the fight, it seemed like there was this kind of reluctance from him. You could kind of tell he was reluctant because he has been knocked out so many times now in recent years. I feel like he has this kind of fear of it happening again. So he just
engaging or something, yeah.
yeah, exactly. And I think he was just happy to get back in the win column. He got his hand raised. He didn't look like he didn't look amazingly well, but he didn't look bad. It was a decent fight. So I think this is serve to give him more confidence, and hopefully he can kind of break back into the top 10 and compete at the world level like again.
Yeah, for sure. It's a tricky one. He hasn't fought since his first fight since December 2021. That was obviously a first round KO defeat to Kai Kara France.
Yeah.
So yeah, as you said, obviously had the couple of defeats to Dillashaw in there last couple of years as well.
Mhm.
It's been a tough ride for him, but he's one of those fighters that you kind of like and you kind of get behind him. He's a good lad. Like he's a good lad. Like he's a
He
fun
is, yeah.
character. Like
He is a likable character, even though,
yeah.
he's had some cringy moments and he
What's I was about to say, what's the one on the on
hanging with the
yeah.
boys.
It's so
Terrible.
good.
Like, it's so bad. Like,
Hanging with the boys. Hanging with the boys. Hanging with the boys. Good. Good. We're hanging with the boys.
like every time I watch it, I cringe so hard.
So
But
good.
as you say, like he's not someone that no matter how many times you see stupid stuff like that, you're not gonna dislike him as a fighter. I think
Yeah, it's harmless. Like
yeah, his heart's in the right place, and he's just funny. Like in that fight, actually, just the other night, like he was doing like the kind of Muhammad Ali shuffle and stuff, and it's fun. It's interesting to see him do that, considering his form over the last few years. Like it's
hopefully
gas.
that's him getting a bit of confidence back in there because you think
Yeah,
about it. He'd probably arguably one of the most impressive title victories
Easily.
performances of all time. That win over
He
Dominic Cruz was
completely
so
outclassed a
one-sided.
prime Diana Cruz. Like,
Yeah, so one-sided, so impressive.
yeah,
Uh,
he looked untouchable. He literally looked
yeah,
untouchable in
I
that
was
fight.
like, this guy is going to be pound for pound one of the best in the world. Like this
Yeah,
guy's amazing. And then
crazy, isn't it? It's
yeah,
just it's so like it's so not what we expected. Like the following years, like, but that's how it goes in the sport, I suppose. Like,
we'll move on to a rising star, someone that is going to be talked about for the years and years to come. Bo Nickel.
mm,
He picked up a win over Jamie Pickett. Nickel probably one of the biggest prospects in MMA as a whole.
yeah,
And this is obviously a middleweight bout in the middleweight division as well. It could do it, another kind of exciting contender going into that top 15. Probably a little bit, maybe a little bit off that just for the moment, but yeah, super, super exciting talent. And it was a round one submission for him. Thoughts on the fight?
yeah, brilliant performance. I think everyone in the lead up, it was just almost a given that he was going to go in and run through this guy.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
odds were something crazy. I can't even remember the odds, but it was so heavily in his favor, like in his favor. Um,
Wasn't worth betting on. Like,
no, exactly. It literally wasn't even worth betting on. But yeah, like I think the whole idea is that he's this wrestling champion, all American wrestling champion.
mm.
Can he transition to like the elite level in MMA? It seems that he can. Obviously, he hasn't faced anyone of the top caliber yet. Um, but yeah, very, very impressive performance. He looked dominant. First round, took him down. Yeah, looked too good.
Yeah, yeah. Another one where it's probably like kind of same as a couple of people have mentioned before, but like kind of managing that star and being kind of careful and not push them too quick. But he looks like he can really go all the way, and he looks
Yeah.
like the real deal, really.
Yeah, I mean, like it is one of those ones where it's not like, okay, we need to, as you say, you don't throw them straight into Shark Tank. But this guy, like, I was very impressed with how like easy he made it look. Like when he got down to the ground, like he was on his back within a split second. Like
Yeah,
it was nothing he could have done.
his
And
composure is something as well, isn't it? That's
so
his thing as well.
composed, so
Yeah,
composed, and
looked like this shouldn't have been his fourth fight in
no,
MMA.
not at all. Like, but the thing is, he's been competing his whole life, and I think that's what it was saying in the little clip before the fight. He's like he's a competitor, like he's been competing in wrestling since he was 11 or 12. So, he's used to it. It's all he knows. So,
Yeah,
um, but interestingly, I seen a clip going around. I kind of noticed it at the time, but I didn't really think anything of it once the fight was finished. But he actually kicked him low blow,
yeah, yeah.
and that
A
was what led
little
to the finish.
controversial. Like,
It is a little bit controversial in hindsight. Not to say that wouldn't have happened a minute later if they had stopped the fight,
yeah,
or whatever, let him recover from the low blow. But yeah, it was definitely a low blow, 100%.
Yeah, without a doubt. Yeah. We'll move on to Mateus Gamrot, who picked up a split decision victory over. I know you're a massive fan of Jalen Turner, so
Fuck's sake, like.
yeah, I know you weren't best pleased with Jalen's performance in the night.
No, look, like I'm in no position to be pointing fingers at these guys. Like, like not like I wouldn't ever like disrespect them or anything, but just as a fan watching it, I just thought it was such a terrible fight. Like, and I know other people who have watched that fight would disagree with me. I just watching it, it just irritated me throughout. I think they did land some good shots. Jalen Turner landed some good shots, but the lack of urgency, like he just seemed so lax the whole time, and the fact that he let it go to a decision, and it was a split decision, like a split decision meaning one or the other, like he could have taken that fight, like, do you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it was just annoying, it was annoying to watch, frustrating.
Yeah, yeah. Important win for Gamrot though. Obviously, I think he took the fight on like 9-10 days notice. And I think he wanted to get back in that win column after like a disappointing loss to Beneil Dariush towards the end of last year. So it's important for him to get back in that mix. He's kind of in that kind of 5 to 10 zone in the rankings where you want to try and break it to that top 5. Obviously, had a damaging defeat, but yeah, wants to get back in that win column, and he did so. You kind of did well because Jalen is a bit of a puzzle as well. I know he's kind of frustrating to watch, but he is a puzzle. He's kind of rangy, big guy, and Gamrot did quite well to take down to times and did kind of execute his game plan on such short notice, really. So impressed me in that regard. But yeah, I think he probably will need to step it up against the likes of Dariush and Gaethje. Those kind of people in the division, he'll need to step up his kind of levels a little bit more.
That's literally like that's the first thing that came to my head after watching the fight, was that neither of these guys can compete in the top 5. If they want to break into the top 5, they need to kind of switch something up, because even Gamro, he got the win, but I just no, like I was picturing him against the likes of Dustin Poirier or against a Chandler, and I just don't think he can swim in those waters. Like,
Next up, Jeff Neal faced off against the poor fella. He faced off against Shavkat Rakhmonov.
Mhm.
And Rakhmonov, of course, Kazakhstani, and one of a really, really exciting prospect in the
Yeah.
UFC. And he extended his record to 17-0, 5-0 in the UFC. A really, really good submission. Kind of a one you wouldn't see every day. An interesting looking one in
Mhm.
round 3. But yeah, he looked really impressive. Looks the real deal too, doesn't he?
Yeah, for sure. Like he looked very dominant. It was a great fight of the night, I think, as well. And as you say, the submission was it shows the kind of depth of his arsenal, that he's willing to pull off like a standing kind of choke, but it was almost like he was extending the body as well. Like, so I don't even know what you would call it as such, but it was a great submission. He kind of hooked his leg in, and he kind of pulled him back and choked
Really
him.
creative, like
Yeah, it was really creative. It was kind of on the spot. Jeff Neal missed weight as well. I think he was about 4 pounds overweight, but Dana still gave him the bonus, even still, just because he
quite
was so
nice.
impressed with the fight. So yeah, it
Yeah,
was a brilliant fight.
yeah. And Rakhmonov, he's one of those fighters you look at and he's like what's his weakness? Like, because he's a strong grappler, really good in the striking department, has submissions. I think he's one of those fighters that like it could be kind of tough to like pair him with opponents in the top 10 because they're like no one really wants to kind of fight him. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like a Hamza type
Someone,
character.
yeah, that kind of
Yeah.
that's the kind of vibe I get off him.
That's what people were saying, that that would be the matchup to make, him and
Yeah,
Hamza. I
yeah.
think that would be Clash of the Titans.
And then moving on to our co-main event, and possibly one of the biggest upsets of the year. Valentina Shevchenko went up against Alexia Grasso, and yeah, huge upset for the flyweight title.
Yeah.
It was a good fight though. It wasn't like kind of a lucky like this submission to grab onto or anything. Like, it was a good competitive scrap throughout.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's so hard to go against Shevchenko. She's one of those fighters like the likes of Nunes, and like
It's a
even
back there.
Usman when he was beating everyone. Like,
Yeah,
it's so hard to go against them, or go against her, should I say? But yeah, no, Alexa Grasso looked like she belonged in that fight throughout. Like, I think I had a 2-1 to Shevchenko going into the fourth round. And yeah, amazing submission, and delighted for her, because she's the first Mexican women's champion.
Shevchenko kind of threw that kick and just kind of gave up
Yeah,
her back for like a split
yeah,
second, and you just can't even make those mistakes at this level. And well, maybe it was a little bit of complacency that she threw that kick in the
mhm,
first place.
yeah,
A little bit of complacency or something
mhm.
slipped into it. But I think in terms of this fight, if there's anybody deserving of an immediate rematch, it's Shevchenko. Like, I think this is one that you run back straight away, pretty much.
Yeah. You'd have to think so. I mean, Dana was asked, but he said he doesn't know, but which would, like, I mean, it's harsh. He said probably, but he doesn't know. But
Yeah,
it would be pretty harsh to not give her the rematch straight away.
that's what you. Maybe it is a case of like you try and build up um Grasso a little bit, like with one or
Yeah,
two fights before making the rematch or something.
mhm,
Else. I think the UFC can do that. Should do that a little bit more. Where like I think they did it with Michael Bisping when he won the title. They didn't give Rockholder an immediate rematch. They kind of let him fight Anderson Silva and Dan Henderson, who weren't really like title contenders or like were kind
Well, I
of
think he fought Silva before Rockhold, but he defended
sorry.
against Dan Henderson.
He
But
was
yeah, exactly.
Dan
Dan
Henderson
Henderson
fight.
was ranked
Sorry,
12
yeah,
at the time.
yeah.
Ranked 12 at the time when he's getting the title shot, which was just crazy. I think
Yeah.
that's the first and only time that's ever happened, actually.
Yeah, just for that, like, just I think it's like kind of a good idea to try and maybe let that champion establish himself a little bit and not always do the immediate rematch. I think it's definitely like a good kind of ploy marketing wise or something even.
I think so, because if you think, if that fight happens straight away again, and to say the same thing happens, is it as impressive as the first time? I feel like it's almost like, oh, well, that just happened, so she did it again,
Yeah,
even though she should get props for doing it again. So even if Valentina went off and had a spectacular win, and Grasso defended once, that makes that fight 10 times bigger, because they're both back in the win column, and they can both
yeah,
go head to head again.
yeah.
So yeah, I think that's what I'd like to see, but I don't think that will happen.
It's like
somehow.
kind of like Holloway Volkanovski, like they kind of fought 3 times in relatively quick succession,
Yeah,
and you just can't even justify a fourth fight anymore. Whereas given like a couple of other contenders a go at it, making Max a bigger star, maybe push Max up to 155 for a couple of fights, something just
mm,
like mix it up a little bit. Don't have them kind of going at it again and again and again. Uh,
exactly. And I think it delegitimizes it doesn't delegitimize the win, but I think in the eyes of the fans and the people watching, they'd think like we've seen this before, so it's
yeah,
not as impressive or something, you know.
yeah,
So I
sure.
think that time in between, if they had other fights, would kind of make it more exciting and more impressive again as well.
100%, 100%. We will move on to our main event of the evening.
Yeah.
Johnny Bones Jones did, of course, secure the victory, becoming the heavyweight champion of the world, taking that vacant title, of course, against Cyril Gane. And round one submission, guillotine choke, less than kind of 3 minutes on the clock, and it just looked very, very easy. Obviously, John Jones very impressive, but I thought Cyril Gane was fucking useless.
It was a an interesting performance from Cyril Gane, but I mean, all I have to say about John Jones is what a fucking guy, man. Oh my God. Like I actually thought he looked fucking a little bit kind of overweight and a little bit heavy in
Yeah,
the midsection coming in. And I was thinking like Cyril Gane is
well,
so
that's
good that he's the most legitimate heavyweight you'll ever look at.
yeah.
Guy moves, he's so slick on the feet. He moves like he's a welterweight or a middleweight. And I thought he was going to give Jones a lot of problems. Like I thought this move up to heavyweight, 3 years off. I thought it was going to be real back and forth, and I thought it was going to be one of the closest fights Jones has ever had, and potentially his first loss. That's what I had in my head coming in, and he made it look so easy. It was
Yeah.
crazy.
Because I think back to like Dominic Reyes pretty much beat John Jones.
Yeah,
Like on a lot of people's scorecards, Dominic Reyes, it was probably a close fight, but Reyes arguably like on a different night wins that fight. Was that I think it was a split decision, like a razor thin
yeah,
fight.
it
Uh
was.
and I after 3 years off, I was genuinely gonna put money on and like was gonna back. And if we had done a preview video, I was gonna say zero gun round one knockout and kind of shock the world type thing. That's what I was envisaging. I was kind of envisaging Jones being a little bit slow. I agree with you, kind of the looked a bit top heavy and maybe being a little bit slower and a bit rusty after those years off.
Mhm.
And Gans is to catch him, and at heavyweight, if you get caught, it can happen. I was expecting the kind of a shock the world moment, and I couldn't have been more wrong. But yeah, I thought Cyril was really, really poor. Really poor performance from him. But yeah, John Jones, is he the GOAT?
I mean, again, I just think it's hard not to say he is now after that. But I feel like this conversation it goes back and forth between people. I
Yeah,
think he's always been in the background. Obviously, he hasn't fought that much in recent years, and his last fight, his last fight was arguably a loss. So I think people not disregarded him, but like you almost forget about him for a couple of years.
yeah.
But to come back in and do that at heavyweight, put on the weight for the last 3 years, and come in against a legitimate heavyweight, someone that's challenging would challenge anyone in the heavyweight division and submit him in 2 minutes. It's incredibly impressive. So yeah, you'd have to say right now he's the GOAT. Yeah,
Did you see the video of Henry Cejudo on
yeah,
TikTok?
I did.
Showing
That was fucking mad.
crazy,
That
crazy, and it
was
kind of
mad.
shows John Jones is kind of like you kind of don't think about his off octagon issues, whatever, but just in
Mm,
terms of his actual kind of fighting IQ, whatever. Like he's
mm,
like even at this stage, like he can be. Like I'd say a lot of people would get very arrogant and too good for this, but he kind of seems
that's
like
true.
humble and always willing, like a sponge, willing to learn. Even
Mm,
from a guy that's like 135 pound champion, 125 pound champion, but he's like willing to learn from him. Obviously, Cejudo's a genius in the
mm.
grappling department as well. So, but it's just interesting to see him kind of like a sponge soaking that in, and like that was crazy, like that maneuver the takedown was like so like Cejudo showing him what to do. It's
So similar. It's weird the way that happens. You see that does happen with a few fights. Obviously, the most famous one was the McGregor one with
yeah, of
with
course.
Aldo. But yeah, it's strange to see like a kind of a transition so similar to what they're looking at. But as
Yeah.
you say, I like to see him kind of nodding and like he's a student. He's not, he doesn't pretend to be walking around like I know everything. I'm the master. I'm the go.
You've got 36, like
Yeah, like do you know what I mean? And I heard a crazy statistic. It does make sense, but I heard a crazy statistic the other day that his last like I don't know what it was. His last like 13 fights in the UFC have all been title fights.
Yeah,
Like that is just an
yeah.
absolutely mental statistic. Like how how is that even possible? Like, but
Never going to
yeah,
get kind of like overawed by the occasion. He's so much experience. He's like, I think Cyril Gane is definitely a bit kind of the
definitely.
occasion got to him. Like,
I thought walking in, I said he looks really calm. That's what I was saying to myself when he got into the octagon initially. I thought he looks really calm. I was like, this could go either way. And then when Jones came out, I think maybe just the light started shining brighter once Jones was facing him. I don't know, but he didn't look like he didn't land anything. He didn't get anything across. So it was just completely one sided.
as Joey Diaz would say, is Stiopic. Is he next?
I mean, he has to be, doesn't he? Like
Yeah.
he's, yeah. Like I mean, Jones is kind of referring to him as the heavyweight goat, which I mean, that's I don't know. What do
I
you
think he
think?
has the most heavyweight title
Defenses.
defenses, isn't it, or something?
Yeah.
Three.
Um.
It's only like three or something as well. Because like the
Oh
heavyweights.
no, yeah, but that's the thing. Like heavyweights just get KO'd the whole time.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, that I think that fight would be. I'd be excited for that fight, but also I think a part of me is almost like building up in that fight with Cyril Gane in my head. I was like getting excited for it, and because it was so like quick and easy, it almost makes me less excited for the Stipe fight. Like that, it's just going to be too easy for him each time. He's just that good.
Yeah, yeah. The biggest bummer of the weekend, I think, has to be post-fight press conference. I mean, no, Dana always can go back on his word and all this kind of stuff, but he did rule out a return to the UFC for Francis Ngannou, and that's the fight that we all want to see realistically. Francis
100%.
Ngannou tweeting out, "Well done, Johnny boy," and stuff after the fight.
Yeah, the
Like,
heavyweight king.
heavyweight king, yeah, yeah. Like you'd have to love him. And that like surely has to happen somewhere down the line. Like Dana, it's clearly if Francis Ngannou comes back to the negotiating table, I know that Dana won't turn his nose up to it. Like he has to consider that because that is an absolutely amazing scrap.
It is, but I'd agree with you. But at the same time, Dana said like I tried to make that fight happen for 2 years. It's almost like, do you think it could have been a case where he's reached his breaking point and he just said, some fights just aren't meant to happen. It's just that's how it goes sometimes.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Is
Like,
Ngannou gonna box like?
well, I think Ngannou's whole thing was I'm gonna go get a fight with Tyson Fury or Deontay Wilder, but I mean, I almost don't picture it happening. I just can't really see that. So, um, yeah, and I mean, like if he goes boxes Deontay Wilder, I mean, I can't imagine it will go too well for him. Like,
Yeah. I think
do you know what I mean? Like he's going in against
loses stock like if he gets
heavyweight champion boxers. Like, I don't like how Dana's kind of. I know obviously he can be quite like behind the scenes. He can be quite ruthless and stuff, and obviously he appears like such a nice fella, but like I do think he's a bit cutthroat, like just given the nature of the business. But the fact that he's saying like, oh, I don't think it would have went any different if it was Francis in there. I mean, you can't say that. You know what I mean?
he's
You
just
can't.
saying that because he
That's
doesn't
complete.
think about
Like,
that
yeah,
option. Like, yeah.
just be like, yeah, well, don't worry about Francis because it would have been the same. But like, how could we possibly say that? Like,
And if you've learned one thing from the heavyweight division, every fight could end different. Like one punch from Francis Ngannou could knock out a horse. Like,
easily. Like, I mean, if Jones got caught, he's only human. Like, do you know what I mean? He's not a god. If he got caught with a punch, it could go exactly how the Gane fight went, but it also might not. And I think even if Gane had a rematch, I think he would approach it a bit differently. He might try and storm him. Like, I think that's what he'll be kicking himself the most is the fact that he was probably trying to execute a game plan and it just went nowhere. And I'd say he would have even been better off just trying to storm him and put the pressure on, push him against the cage and, try and land a few heavy shots. Like he probably would have more a chance of winning, but that's how it goes, I suppose.
Yeah, unbelievable fight card. Really enjoyed going through that with you.
Yeah, for sure. It was class. Really enjoyed it.
Such a good one. Guys, if you enjoyed the video, make sure to drop a like on it down below and please do subscribe. Leave a few suggestions for videos you'd like to see as well down in the comments below. We'll have plenty coming up. We obviously have UFC 286 in London just around the corner. Plenty of other bits and bobs along the way as well. So yeah, plenty to come on the channel. Make sure to stay subscribed. Thank you so much for tuning in and we'll catch you in a bit.
Cheers.